Decades, the world has changed in fundamental ways. Asia and Africa are independent and resurgent. Countries are now not only more interdependent, but also face new and increasingly complex challenges. For multilateralism to remain relevant and effective in the future, multilateral institutions need to be reformed and reformed urgently. The place to begin is right here. The United Nations Security Council must be reformed and restructured to reflect current political realities. More developing countries should be included as both permanent and non-permanent members. Multilateral financial institutions should also enable an enhanced voice for developing countries in their decision-making structures. Multilateral efforts must guide our quest for peace and security wherever they are threatened, and the centrality and contribution of the United Nations system to development must be restored. These objectives, Mr. President, require the building of a new international consensus suited to our time and rooted in today's realities. It is only such a plan of action that will enable the United Nations to meet the twin tests of legitimacy and effectiveness and efficiency. Mr. President, we commend your choice for the theme of this session, setting the stage for the post-2015 development agenda is especially important as we deal with the lingering global economic slowdown and continuing volatility in financial markets. These have imposed disproportionately heavy costs on developing countries and vulnerable groups within these countries. Growth and inclusive development are naturally important for all our countries. They require a supportive international economic environment, enhanced investment flows, including from multilateral development banks, transfer of technology, and an open multilateral trading regime. But the problems of over 1 billion people living in abject poverty around the world need to be attacked and attacked more directly. Poverty remains a major political and economic challenge, and its eradication requires special attention and a new collective thrust. This priority should anchor the post-2015 development agenda, which should be shaped by the member states so that it enjoys the broadest possible support and acceptance. Mr. President, issues of peace, security, human rights, and governance are important and need to be addressed. But we will fall short of realizing an ambitious post-2015 development agenda if we focus merely on governance issues at the cost of robust economic growth. This agenda should not be merely about reprioritizing domestic spending, but also about fostering genuine international partnerships between developing and developed countries to bring about change. All of us need the policy space necessary to set our own domestic priorities. No one knows the condition of developing countries better than the developing countries themselves. It is therefore important that the United Nations set clear and concise goals and provide practical and well-defined means of implementation, including adequate flow of resources and transfer of technology, taking the views of developing countries fully into account. A meaningful post-2015 agenda must place equally high priority on food and nutrition, health, education, infrastructure, water, sanitation, energy, and discrimination against women. Especially critical is women's equal access to economic opportunities and that they do not become victims of violence or targets of prejudice. In India, Mr. President, we have sought to promote inclusive development in multiple ways. Legislation has broadened access to education and secured rural livelihoods. We are now building in the world's largest program for food security. Digital technology is being harnessed to improve the delivery of public services and benefits to the people. Mr. President, India is proud of its partnerships with developing countries. Using modest resources, we have built strong ties with Africa and the least developed countries. We are committed to building 100 institutions in Africa, have offered capacity building support, including thousands of scholarships, and made available concessional assistance of over 9.5 billion US dollars. India and Africa are engaging through the India-Africa Forum Summit process. We also look forward to participating actively in the third conference on the small island developing states in Samoa in 2014 and contributing to its outcome. Mr. President, climate change is one of the defining challenges of our times. We must summon the necessary political will for crafting a robust global response to climate change on the basis of equity and the principle of common but differentiated responsibility. Mr. President, sir, we are deeply concerned about the future of West Asia, a region with which India shares deep bonds of history and one that is critical for our energy security as well as the livelihood of nearly 7 million Indians who work and live in the region. The increasingly lethal conflict in Syria is not only a tragedy for the people of Syria, but also threatens stability and security in the region and beyond. It has been made worse by the use of chemical weapons. The use of chemical weapons, whosoever may have deployed them, must be condemned in the strongest possible terms. India supports strongly the elimination of chemical weapon material and equipment in Syria.